on your skin. I pull you closer, let it begin.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back!
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's ride!
Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. I hope that you are all having a great day. It was a nice hot one. Not warm, hot. And it gave way to a very, very exhausting workout. So good. Where I actually went a little bit harder than I should have on the first of the season like this, where you just kind of, we train with the seasons over here in New York, and when it is spring and summer, we are jumping like Mexican jumping beans. And man, I went a little bit too hard today, and I need Aurora to be my nurse. I said, Aurora, I was just laying on the back porch. I said, go get a cold paper towel, just soak it in cold water. She said, I'll be right back. And she came back and she's dabbing my forehead. She said, oh, you poor thing. Like it's some Disney film or something. She found a wounded fox on the side of the road. You poor thing. Let me take you home. So, but it was all right. Everything worked out nice. It's a good 80-something degree day. And I just couldn't wait to get back to the studio tonight because, A, that would mean that I survived. And B, we have some wonderful things to talk about, and I'll be discussing that in just a second. I wanted to just say, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Please, leave a like right now, and also tell everybody where you're from. Let's get a roll call going right now. Everybody, drop your city, drop a state, drop a country, whatever the hell. Don't drop anything too intimate in there as far as the details. No social security numbers, nothing like that. No PIN codes, anything. But show everybody where you're from. Let's see where the reach is tonight for the live show, and that's going to help us out a lot. A like and a little bit of a hello. On this April 15th, it's tax day. And is there any day of the year that makes you feel less patriotic than April 15th? Which is the deadline, our indentured servitude and extortion deadline. That's what today is. That's the deadline. No, it's the price we pay for living in a society, the retards say. Don't come to me with the price for living in a society. Don't come to me with those comments ever, please. On tax day, there's a reason why it is the maximum amount of distance away from election day. It's like you can't get any closer one way, give or take a week or two, but it's like you can't. I know that because my birthday is in April, and I know 6 months later, which is half of a year, is October. So I understand that the middle of April, middle of October to that first week in November, that's when we usually have our elections. It's all as far as you can use that 12 months to keep people not thinking about how they were bent over in April and how it never gets better. Anyway, this is the day that we are reminded that we have a vampire bat that is affixed to our jugular. And it's just slurping away, slurping. And it uses the money that we make to encourage the have-nots in our society to hate you. To hate you for having the gumption to even wake up in the morning and try to make something of yourself. I'm sorry if I'm starting off very salty tonight, but it's tax day, and this is not like waking up and like, oh, the birds are chirping. I love it. Even though it was very beautiful. On the outside. On the inside, it was an ugly day. It's tax day. And that's all I have on that. Actually, no, that's not all I have. We're going to talk about the connection that tax day has, the Federal Reserve, and of course, this is also another anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. And it's been about 5 years since we talked about a very commonly discussed conspiracy theory, which is just seems to be a pretty solid, almost airtight theory, if you ask me, about collusion to introduce the poison pill, the greatest poison pill in this country, which was the central bank, after President Jackson effectively killed it. We went through the Gilded Age, making more wealth than ever before, and of course we had the snakes, the venomous snakes, those who like to take down countries just through rumors and whispers sometimes. But they got their prize in 1913, and in 1912 is when the Titanic went down with a couple of very, very, very high-ranking and prestigious opponents of such an institution. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to an article that we had written and published on QuiteFrankly.tv, part of a really incredible trilogy of articles. And it was called The Arms Race of Ideas, written by John Carroll, good friend of the show. He did wonderful work back then when he was writing with us. He's since moved on to other things, but I love going back and reading all the stuff he's done. And we're going to read part 2 tonight with our good friend Anne, who's coming back. And I'm going to allow her to introduce herself because, of course, I've been saying her name wrong. I've been saying her name completely wrong, which is what happens, especially when it's French. Right, Anne? Anne, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, Anne, I've been calling.
Thanks for having me back.
It's great to have you back. So, I mean, let's just get this out of the way. You didn't say a thing as I called you Anne Bellinger 89,000 times. But it's actually something a lot more French and a lot more beautiful sounding. So tell us what your name is.
Right. So, yeah, it's almost spelled that way, but it's actually pronounced Bélanger, which actually means beautiful angel in French.
That's a beautiful name.
There you go.
And I made it so, I don't know, American. Anyway.
All good.
Anyway, it's great to have you back.
Thank
you were here about a month or so ago.
Yeah.
And you were doing some stuff at the UN with the real passion. That's the fertility business.
Yep.
And you're back in town, and I said, hey, well, come back in because there's more stuff that we can talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
thank you.
How often do you is this going to be like the last time you'll be in?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I come in March and in April because that's when the 2 big commissions at the United Nations take place.
Could you draw that microphone a little bit closer to your mouth?
Better?
Yeah, no farther than I don't know, less than a fist away.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
It's these 2 months really that I come into New York, mostly in March, but when I can, I also get here in April for the commission because this commission is actually on population.
Right.
So it is very connected to the work that I do with fertility health.
And then that's it. You'll be back in 2027, but that's it for this year.
Yeah, I mean sometimes I come back for the summit in September.
Well, I'm glad to have you.
Yeah,
I'm glad to have you. And in the flip side, which is going to be a shorter flip side tonight, I actually have some questions that pertain to what we were talking about the last time with fertility and biology and all that stuff.
Right.
Because, of course, since then, when I was sharing clips from the show and everything else, I've been getting all this stuff coming back to me on Instagram and things where people are going through. Some of it is not even pregnancy related, but it's just hospital related. And I'm I got a short list of things I want to ask you that
Okay.
piled up real quick. So we'll do that in the flip side because
All right.
tonight you have other interests that you want to bring in.
Yeah, I'm open to all kinds of things. Yeah.
I got a couple of things
Yeah.
because I know what some of those interests are.
Yep.
But before we get there, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say, give this episode not only a big thumbs up, but timestamp. If something makes you chuckle, if something makes you go, if anything, any kind of visceral reaction to the show, please put a timestamp in the comments so that we can go check it out, pull it out of the episode, and throw it up as a clip. Because I'll tell you something, one of the biggest clips of the year so far came from an audience timestamp, and that was the alien circumcision video. Okay, I mean that has done stupid numbers on Instagram, and let's win together. If it do stupid numbers on YouTube, I swear to God, I'll send you all the AdSense. You know, I think for every 100,000 views, you get like $100. I'll send it to you all. I don't care. I just want the eyes. So if you know how the internet works, you know how people respond to things. Get timestamps, and I have to keep reminding you guys, please be a part of the production team just simply by watching. And also for tomorrow we're going to be doing a super chat giveaway. Of course we've got silver. We've got 4 silver quarters. I've got Matt from Cultivate Elevate's 6-mix capsule pack. This is all mushrooms. Energy levels, mental health, cellular repair, radiation detox, longevity, 6-mix. That's from Matt. But then also straight from Greece. Here it is, the olive oil and the which one was this? This was the oak tree honey, straight from Greece. And this stuff is so good. I've been drinking the olive oil, like shots of it.
Is that right? Eh?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This just came in of a friend sent it to me, and it's sent 4 bottles. So I said I got to give some of this away.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and it comes from Pylos, which I think is, I mean, we're talking about ancient parts of Greece. I mean, every part of the world is ancient if you think about it. But as far as civilization goes, I don't know. Next time you come in, we'll take a shot of olive oil together.
Okay.
You know,
All right, I'm up for it.
I hope you are. Anyway, okay. So here's what I have for you. You and I were talking about a few things. Numbers was one of them. We're going to talk about Gematria tonight, and we have a guest coming on in the second half that is going to be able to speak from some pretty good experience. It's the first time he's been on.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about that in a second. But where the hell was it over here? Oh, I need your comment on the CIA. This made news shortly after you came on the show. Here it is. The CIA rescinds 19 DEI-infused intel reports, including a warning about women in traditional gender roles. And it was rescinded by John Ratcliffe. But the one about women is incredible. You want to talk about bias? Any woman who is, thinking about motherhood or anything like that is not only extremist, but was all types of supremacist and everything like that. I don't know if you ever read Brave New World, but we were bringing it up on the show. It's just incredible, the conditioning, the absolute conditioning about making family life some sort of an obscenity. And so I don't know, as far as, you're all about trying to switch the culture and the trajectory of. So what do you think about stuff like this when they happen?
Well, I did not read Brave New World. I mean, it might have been in our curriculum, but there were a number of things that were in the curriculum that I managed to evade. So I don't think I've ever read that. But I know that its treatment and its discussion of women is very dire. Traditional roles and women who want to stay home and raise their families, and how that's extreme. Well, we all know that's not actually extreme. That's the best thing for the children, if possible, actually. So it doesn't surprise me that the CIA, which is actually like a fairly newer creation from the OSS, and that was modeled after the Nazis, and
Yes.
that was modeled after the Jesuits, and there's so it's not that new in that regard. But the CIA is definitely behind a lot of controversy. And Brave New World, it's I imagine it's like Animal Farm. It's like 1984. These were books that maybe they were promoted as being culturally out there, like, wow, that's really, going against the grain. But I think actually it was part of the propaganda to have them out there.
It's worked. It's worked wonders,
Yeah.
or horrors, if you want to put it that way.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to throw it out there because you and I were just talking about this just days before. It might have gotten out a little bit sooner than that, but it started going viral shortly after that show wrapped up with you, and I was like, damn. See, this is what people like you are up against, and it's not just about trying to teach men and women who want to start families or want to create bigger families or anything like that, how the body works and how timing works, cycles work, and all that stuff. It's actually working against people's social conditioning to feel like they are worthy, or that they are not committing some kind of an act of white supremacy by wanting a family or a large family,
right?
Like And that kind of pressure, those social pressures work on women a lot more than guys do.
Yeah.
And if a woman is not, if you all of a sudden she's not down for it, that's it. That's where your family ends.
Yep. Very true. Very true. And there's a big stigma that's put on women, that they should be career minded. They should be thinking, well, if family, then just small family and later in life, not right away. And I think women have always felt like, in some sense, that they need to prove something. And so it works on that psyche that, well, they want to prove that are actually as good as men. And I'm going to throw a number out here, which I was, from the United Nations. There are only really 14 countries in the world that have laws that you would consider that women have the same rights as men. So out of 205 countries, 206 countries, 14 of them consider women equally in terms of their law and social status.
I can't imagine where those 14 countries are.
This might come to us a little bit of shock, but the United States is not one of them.
Wait, what?
I know. It might seem.
Oh wait, on what scale then? What are we talking about?
So they have a scale, and I'm sorry, I don't have all of the different measurements that they use for this scale, but they have a scale of 1 to 100, and there's only 14 countries in the world that have met that point of saying they have 100% equality between men and women, and the United States lies somewhere between 91 and 92%. And I think that's because there's a discrepancy in payment for the same job. Like women receive a little bit less. I mean, I'm just reporting to you what the UN's reported, okay?
Yeah, of course they would.
Yeah, and that there's the other discrepancy has to do with paid maternity and paternity leave. So there's something in there. But to be fair, I'm gonna put this out there too. The United Kingdom also is not at 100%.
Yeah, I think I think that just might be because the United Kingdom and the United States are not completely destroyed yet, and they want to destroy it because the whole wage gap thing absolutely disappears to less than a nickel when you account for people making choices of their own free will. And of course, that's number one. But aside from that, I was going to say the United States is probably they have completely overcorrected as far as the promotion versus the denigration of men and then women, or vice versa, because it's just being pushed to higher levels beyond. Boys are actually on the shit end of the stick at this point. But I don't know. It's I don't see this is why I say it's very interesting that you do work with the UN, and I'm interested just in somebody like you being associated and in some way affiliated with them, because they are the tip of the spear in so many of these kind of social agendas that are being made to go worldwide.
Yeah.
2030s, all that. So, but having you on the inside is very interesting.
And I would say that they are definitely the tip of the spear, but they are not the thrust of the spear. So they're the part that we see as this is what's moving forward, and so we all have to move in lockstep with it. But like they themselves are a facade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not the actual quote unquote controllers of what's going on. I wanted to share with you this afternoon. I was talking with a few women from Europe and from Africa about what I do, and they were very excited and very happy to hear me talk about natural fertility. And I'm contrasting that with a session I was in earlier this week, where it became obvious that what's happening economically around the world with all the countries is that they are finding themselves in situations where all of their debt is outweighing their income. So, in essence, we don't like the idea of a one world government, but economically, that is really how the push is happening. That all of these countries are being formed to make bonds with each other regionally and then cohesively eventually.
Yeah. That's
economically.
That was the word. That's the European Union.
Yeah,
and,
they're a big push on that.
That's taken so much down out there. Germany and I mean, from the franc to the lira to everything else. That was so much more of a better world where sovereignty is maximum at that point. And now you connect everybody at the hip, and if one goes down, they all go down because they all start borrowing from each other. And not that you couldn't borrow and just working against exchange rates or whatever, but it's just, again, to localize representation and economies is to safeguard far more people from calamity if things go wrong or if things are sabotaged. And speaking of sabotage, that's what where we're going tonight with the Titanic and all the other stuff. But before that, because numbers is a part of it and everything else. Mm-hmm. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave the numbers for after that, because I have this really interesting video that has to do with Gematria and this guy. He's talking about Jesus and the connection between Jesus and bread itself. And I thought that this was it. I said, okay, I'm going to grab this for Anne, because it's going to make sense to everything else. And of course, there's going to be a numbers aspect to this. So here it is. Take a look at this. This is the Arms Race of Ideas Part 2, which is up on the blog section on quitefrankly.tv. And it's a very interesting one here. I want to give you just a little bit of context. So speaking of numbers and dates and timelines, simulations, the nature of reality itself comes into this. I thought it would be awesome to read this with you. My friend John Carroll published this on the blog in 2021, which just really blew me away. April 11th, 2021. It's 5 years later. It's just so strange. And it would be nice to do this because it was part of a trilogy, a 3-part series called The Arms Race of Ideas. Part 1 was breaking down the symbolism behind Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz and its deep symbolic connection and maybe even just practical connection to the free silver movement of the late 19th century. And, especially how Dorothy's slippers were silver, not ruby. And, the Emerald City may have been some sort of a reference to the illusion of a stable fiat currency. But part 3, that was all about Donald Trump and Andrew Jackson and what we would have needed to have done to wrestle back meaningful economic policy. But part 2, this is all about the connection between the Titanic, the Federal Reserve, and time travel. But not only that, and memes. How memes and memetics are very important to the structure of reality. So, if you're ready, we'll just jump into this. It's not a long read.
Ahead.
Let's do it. And stop me at any point, because I know you love this.
Yep. I'll just listen along
and jump in.
Yep.
And say, oh, I have a thought about that, Frank. Go right for it. Okay, here we go. If an elite group of people truly conspired to seize control of the world, their first goal would have been to understand the mechanics of the world. How do the gears of the world interlock? Which gears dictate the movement of others? Almost 1,000 years ago, the Knights Templar seem to have figured out that money is truly what makes the world go round. Money is the fabric that holds the various industries of an economy together. Money facilitates economic harmony because it is fungible, meaning that goods and services can be exchanged for money, which can then be exchanged for other goods and services. The fungibility of money negates the need for a barter system and thus allows economies and entire civilizations to scale. The overall supply of money acts as the measuring stick of an economy. Historically, money in prosperous nations had an abundant and stable supply, which enabled the free market to dictate fair and maintain relatively fixed prices of goods and services. One reason central banks represent a form of economic tyranny is because they constantly change the length of an economic measuring stick through inflation. When central banks create new money out of thin air, the bankers get richer and the consumers get poorer, in a pernicious phenomenon called the Cantillon effect. There is a simplified explanation for the process. Number one, the central banks create new money and distribute it to smaller banks, which are now richer. Number two, those smaller banks loan the newly received money at interest to businesses. Number three, businesses, understanding the money supply was just inflated, each dollar is now worth less, raises their prices. And number four, consumers are forced to pay higher prices for the same goods and services. In theory, consumers should receive an increase in wages between steps 3 and 4 to offset their money's loss of purchasing power. In many cases, this doesn't happen or is delayed until after the inflation has taken its toll. Remember in 2016 when Donald Trump went from town to town telling Americans their wages have been stagnant? What he really meant is that they had been getting poorer. Conversely, fractional reserve banking and loan policies can also be used to create deflation, which the 1896 free silver movement sought to neutralize. That was a big part of the part one with Wizard of Oz. A few decades later, as Milton Friedman argued, a massive contraction of the money supply was the actual cause of the Great Depression, not the stock market crash. So inflation makes people poorer, and deflation makes sure that they stay poor. How did we get here? And we got a Mayor Amschel Rothschild quote right there. Give me the control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws. Very, very, very famous. Passed around a lot. Mm-hmm. In his book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin, who I hope is going to be coming back on in May, details the shadowy beginnings of the Federal Reserve System, the current central bank of the United States, on a private island off the coast of Georgia. Have you ever been there, Anne?
No, I think we thought about stopping there, but we didn't actually.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Make sure you put your armor on. The armor of God. You don't want to walk away. Instantaneous possession. In November of 1910, a key senator and several of the world's top bankers met in secret to draft what became the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Together, they represented 1/4 of the world's wealth. Extreme measures were undertaken to ensure the secrecy of the meeting, including the use of disguises, aliases, and alibis. The Federal Reserve Act was lobbied to Congress and the American public as a bill aimed at reining in big banks in response to a series of financial crises. Years after it was passed into law, attendees of the meeting admitted that secrecy was employed because the bill would have been soundly rejected if it was discovered that the banking elite wrote a bill to rein in themselves. When that act was finally pushed through Congress, it had been done so just before Christmas of 1913, when most of the members were on leave. This represents another red flag, but not for the obvious reason. If the bill was written at the end of 1910, why wasn't it passed until 1913? Well, John Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim were three of the wealthiest men in the world at the time, and they had amassed their fortunes outside of banking. All three were vehement opponents of the Federal Reserve Act, and they all three perished aboard the RMS Titanic, which sank in the early hours of April 15th, 1912. Their deaths seem very convenient for those who stood to benefit from the Federal Reserve, like J.P. Morgan. They become suspicious, however, when we learn that Morgan owned the ship, as well as the manufacturing company that built her. Morgan was also booked to sail on the Titanic's maiden voyage, but canceled the day before she departed. Once the disaster struck, the crew was shocked to learn that they had no red flares to send a distress signal to nearby ships, only white flares used for celebration. There are many other oddities about the sinking which suggest conspiracy, but the most eerie one deserves special attention. That's coming next. Anything you got there, Ann?
No, I'll just keep listening.
J.P. Morgan, yeah, I think out of all the reasons why, I think he there's rumors whether he said, he changed plans.
I think he had an appointment for his doctor, or his wife had changed an appointment, and he had to change his plans.
I heard it was a mistress in Paris.
Oh,
so he had it wasn't the wife; it was actually the side girl. Anyway, most people have probably never heard of Morgan Robertson, author of Futility or The Wreck of the Titan. His 1898 book is about a luxury ocean liner which sank in the North Atlantic after colliding with an iceberg near midnight in April. Deemed unsinkable by the experts, the Titan was not equipped with enough lifeboats for all of her passengers, most of whom went down with the ship as a result. Coincidence? If not, how? The fictional Titan of the novel has several more similarities with the Titanic, so much so that the book is reminiscent of Ingersoll Lockwood's Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey, with respect to the latter's seeming to predict a future event, or vice versa. It also fits the future proves past theory adhered to by some. As a side note, 3 years after the Titanic sank, Robertson was found dead in his hotel room due to an alleged drug overdose. And over here we have some images that are set aside that really kind of side by side how things happened with the Titanic, how things were in the book. So you want to talk about just earlier, there wasn't a big vibrant Hollywood scene back then there, Anne, but some would say that there's still a way to do predictive programming through print media.
Yeah, that's exactly what that was definitely. I mean, the coincidence was just too close.
Yes,
for it not to be predictive programming, and that makes me think you were talking about Donald Trump being on the campaign trail. Talking about everybody how we've just been getting poorer and poorer, and you could say, well, there's merit in exposing evil and actually bringing to light the fact that our economy is sinking and our purchasing power is decreasing. But that didn't necessarily change anything. So it brought it to light, but it almost seemed to bring it to light in a way where people had to recognize it, acknowledge it, but then learn to live with it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a soft disclosure in a way. You just, that's the way it is, and you're just going to have to put up with it.
I know. I know. And over time, that's probably one of the more tiring things that people can't take.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if, like, for example, Star Wars or any other story that gets mangled by modern movie houses or anybody that's in charge of production of one thing or another that wants to modernize it and inject politics into it. It sucks to see something that you like really meet its end and really you get put out the pasture in really undignified ways. But at the same time, nobody needs to go and buy a ticket to go see a Star Wars Disney film.
Right.
On the other hand, the more we get disgusted by what's being played out in society, and the more we're reminded, especially on tax day, that we paid for this horrible Broadway play. Mm-hmm. And there's no line item veto that we can take part. Oh man, I would withhold everything. There's nothing that I want from this system. Mm-hmm. Nothing that I want from it. Mm-hmm. Let me just save up my own money so that anytime I have to go to God forbid, a doctor's or a hospital in an emergency, that I have an account where I can dip
Right.
in, you know?
Right. Your own account with your own money.
Seriously.
And we all should have that. But, we would all opt out if we could. So
Exactly.
then they just can't have that.
Exactly. Because their entire illusion was built on, anyway,
let me mention something else about an illusion. Like, I'm thinking about what you're saying with Donald Trump and comparing him with Andrew Jackson. And I actually want to mirror that with Grover Cleveland. Now, Grover Cleveland was the other president of the United States who had split terms. He's the only other president beside Donald Trump. And if you all remember, back in 2016, Donald Trump had his RNC convention in Cleveland, Ohio. And you see, these are things that they're out there. They're facts that actually happen, but they're not really discussed or talked about. So they're not really brought to light. The fact that Donald Trump, is like the second Grover Cleveland. He had his convention in Cleveland, Ohio, the first time around. There were other, let's say, clues that there was going to be a repeat of this split presidency. And let me back you up a little bit. Back in 2018, in March of 2018, is when I was following the Q movement. Okay, many of your followers know the Q movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started following that late 2017, early 2018. Well, from following the Q movement, and Donald Trump was coming back, was going to be this great president, and so on, and at that point was already president. I was reading an article on these Q drops, and that article led me towards finding out about Gematria. And Gematria is a Kabbalistic practice. It's something that's practiced in ancient Jewish faith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even before the Jewish faith. It's a hidden practice. It's not something that's talked about. Most of us don't grow up with. I had never heard the word before, ever. I didn't know what it was. But I'm like, okay, I'm following Q drops, and there's this article telling me to learn Gematria. I don't know what Gematria is. So I start looking into it. And that's how I found Zachary Hubbard. And so I started listening to Zach's channel, right? I started learning more and more about Gematria. That's great. That was March of 2018. Then the midterms came along in November of 2018. And then, huge movement. I mean, the whole country was in favor of Donald Trump and President Trump. And we were all like, I'm not going to say everybody, of course not everybody, but the prevalence in the country was that he was going to win the next election in 2020. Okay?
Uh-huh.
But Zach was already saying, guys, I don't think Donald Trump's coming back. I think Biden's going to win this election. And it was like how you're saying you have to come to terms with accepting something you don't really want to accept. And I was like, oh, no, that can't be true. I mean, if there was ever anything I wanted Zach to be wrong about, it was that Donald Trump was going to lose that election. And it turns out he was absolutely 100% right. And he was the only person I knew saying that at the time. And of course, Donald Trump lost and Biden became our president. And for me, that totally sealed that whole idea that there is something really big running on in the background that we don't know about. We are completely in the dark about. We talk about a shadow government, and deep state, and it's bigger than deep state, guys. It's way bigger than deep state.
Well, there's definitely something you can. There's that layer you can add to it in 2020. I think pretty early on. I think it was pretty obvious that it was going to be a real shit show. By April of 2020 is when they already had people like the hell. obviously Hillary Clinton was doing that, but the other one with the gap in the teeth from Georgia, the hell is her name again? Stacey Abrams.
Oh yeah.
She in April. That's when they first started saying, "Well, I mean, how's this going to affect? How's this going to affect voting in November?" It's good, you know. I said, "Oh, there we go. Forget about it." I mean, that's a lot more mechanical than it is anything. But I am interested in the. There is always that unseen aspect of the planning and how everything is, you know, how everything's set up on the board. That's why I like every once in a while. I really love bringing on a couple of my friends who are all about studying celestial alignments and everything else like that. Whether you apply that to your life, whether you think it's demonic or a gateway drug to one thing or another, it doesn't matter. It's a language of elites, and if you want to have any kind of an understanding of how people who, at least for the time, rule over you,
Exactly.
you know. And you say, "Oh, they don't rule over me." I say, "Okay, well, you know, on this this world they do, because there is no line item veto on tax day.
Right.
You know, you're paying for their game. So I mean, I don't see how that's like, you know, an example of how you have freed yourself from their influence or anything like that. So it's good to know what's going on there. Anyway, back to this, so because we're going to have Zach Hubbard calling in.
Great.
Okay, here we go. So now let's take a step back. And I'm glad you brought all that up. Let's take a step back and re-examine some profound ideas we explored on, quite frankly, last year in 2020, in order to make sense of where we possibly are and where we might be going. In our study of semantics, we learned how our minds have the power to create any reality we choose, which made us understand why we're relentlessly bombarded with propaganda. In the quite frankly episode, Thursday Night Revolution Roulette, Frank and Rob expanded on that thought, discussing a post claiming that the existence of multiple timelines battling for supremacy in the context of the 2020 election. And here is that post. It's from December of 2020. The OP writes, "I believe that we're in a simulation with multiple timelines playing out at the same time. Let's give our collective energy to the Trump timeline, pray, meditate, visualize, do what you can to manifest our will in the simulation. Reality is more subjective than you'd like to believe. Humans are filters for reality. I believe the NPC meme is real and certain people are on autopilot. It doesn't mean that they are NPCs, but their brain is easier to influence and program with mainstream information than other people. There's a reason why they call it programming. Those that don't fall in line with the program are capable of creating their own reality and timeline, which is completely different from the people that are under the programmed reality. There's a reason they say that history is written by the victors. History is literally created by people who win any given conflict, be it a hot war or an information war. This reality is then forced into existence, and every new human born becomes part of that reality, regardless of what the objective truth was." And we were talking, it's so many times we talked about that, especially during 2020, that I said, you know, this reality machine that they keep flexing on us whenever there's any kind of moment of, you know, some tumultuous new chapter in our, you know, there's a new controversy or something like that. You peek in to see what the legacy media are doing, and they're just giving you a new script, a new reality. They're installing it. The more that they repeat something, whether it be Russia, whether it be 6 feet distance neutralizes a virus's reach, or a mask will keep the virus from floating away, or something like that. The more that they say it, the more that it's almost like watching the progress bar of a computer program being uploaded. Right. And I said, this is incredible, a kind of power to just watch people just create reality here. Even if you can't be penetrated by it. Mm-hmm. Still, you know, when you left the house in 2020 and for the 2 years afterwards, you had to contend with people who never had a chance against the programming. And you had to contend with them, or else you're the pariah, not the damaged fools that are around you. Anyway, like they even sent over here, half of the world is 100% sure that Trump colluded with Russia. The other half is 100% sure it was complete bullshit. These are two realities playing out simultaneously. There's nothing schizo about this. It's not a secret woo bullshit either. The objective reality doesn't even matter because reality is filtered through humans. So unless you can convince other humans to believe in your reality, then they aren't part of it, and they will live and die in their own version of the world. Now, we got into the weeds, says John Carroll, about how this might be possible, creating new realities and all that, when we researched CERN. Reality may simply be a project of the dominant zeitgeist, but reality is also mathematically constructed. Meme warfare is likely not just a meme, as memes have the power to alter our thoughts. They can change the mathematical makeup of our minds and thus change the mathematical makeup of our larger reality. Recall also the genesis of the Trump time travel theory. The OP acknowledged the notion of memetics are what holds up the timeline, essentially the mortar of what the timeline is. So they say, don't let the shills slide this thread. The memes are converging. Keck was revitalized during this is when the god Keck came in. This was an incredible time. I don't know how deep you went into that, Anne, but still, back to the wreck of the Titan. This is the conclusion of the article. When we consider the forces that truly govern the nature of reality, which is driven by the collective subconscious, the wonderful Wizard of Oz and futility, or the wreck of the Titan, become more than just books. They become weapons in the arms race of ideas that will determine the future of humanity. A recent quantum businessman presentation supports this theory, claiming the residue from collapsed or merged timelines exists in our current timeline, proving that multiple timelines once ran parallel. It suggests that timelines exist in which the Titanic didn't sink and the Hindenburg never blew up. Certain events like these seem to carry significant meme power, and also everyone today knows about them, just as almost everyone knows about Dorothy's red slippers. In every timeline in which the Hindenburg didn't blow up, it continued. Germany won World War II. Could it have been also that the Federal Reserve Act became law in every timeline in which the Titanic sank? If so, the iceberg, especially in the book and the 1997 film, may have also been a Mandela effect created to cover up the crime. And recently, as 2017, researchers pointed to evidence suggesting the Titanic may have actually been destroyed by fire. Somewhere around the turn of the century may have marked a decision point in time, after which one timeline had to become dominant. Back then, we were faced with the choice of using the magic silver slippers or following the yellow brick road to the Emerald City, so to speak. Unfortunately, free silver lost and the Titanic sank, placing us firmly in the Federal Reserve timeline. The fact that April 15th later became tax day seems to be a mimetic confirmation of our situation. This timeline we grew up in is a dark one indeed, but hope has risen. As discussed above, the new timeline appears to have emerged. In part 3, we'll explore how this beta timeline may have manifested along with the mimetic weapon it's wielding to battle against the alpha timeline. And it was, that was capped off in that part 3. Really wonderful thing. So, man, I love that. You know, especially if we're talking about multiple realities converging, collapsing, what the hell it was.
You know, you said something interesting. We create our realities, and when we I can speak for myself. I choose to step outside of what the prevailing narrative is in our world, whether that be in politics or entertainment or sports, religion, whatever it is. And I choose, to step away from that and say, I don't know if that's what's really going on or not, but I can see through a lot of that. And I see through a lot of it with the practice of Gematria. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something about, astrology and using the stars and everything. And I don't get into any kind of divination or anything. And when we talk about Gematria, we're not looking at that practice as something that we are trying to organize our lives around. But we are able to use that and actually decode and uncode what our reality has been made up for us to believe in. So I can hear a story here. Let me give you an example with 9/11 real quick. Flight 77 was one of the planes that hit on 9/11, and it hit the Pentagon. And the Pentagon sits on the 77th meridian west.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's the location of the Pentagon, and it's 77 feet tall. And the plane hit the Pentagon 77 minutes after it took off. Okay, so there you've got 4 different points, all dealing with this one number. And I'm like, okay, that's not, as we would say, some man in the cave halfway around the world organizing that to happen. I'm not saying I know who's behind what happened, because I don't have any documents, any proof, but I know that that didn't just happen because of the universe or a band of men in the desert halfway around the world. Okay, so when I can look at an event and I can understand that there are elements in that event that keep lining up like those 4 numbers do, then I can say, I don't have to believe the official narrative. I'm not going to just believe because this is what people told me to believe. There's something else going on here, and I can step away from it. So in a way, I'm creating my own reality. In that, I'm not participating in the reality that's being presented to me. Like when Joe Biden won the election. Okay. And then there was all that fraud and all that stuff that came up. Well, whether there was fraud or not doesn't matter. What I think is that all elections are fraudulent. And so my position right now is I don't vote in elections because I have no assurance that my vote is actually going to be, as we saw with the Rothschild vote, the one that's going to make any difference at all. The people who count the vote are the people who are really in charge.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of people would agree with you on that.
You know,
my
So I just mean to say that's why I step out, like I step away, like I create my own reality in that sense, you know, and I'll do that with different areas of my life.
being suspicious of of systems, human systems, is not something that I would say, hey, I mean, you have every right in the world to say, well, I really don't trust most of anything I see anymore or hear from the news. So I don't, knowing that all their fellow travelers are working the polls as well, and in the halls of Congress, and also in their, all their lobbyist friends on K Street or something like that. I can see, connecting those dots and just seeing that there's a much bigger network there that lives outside of anything that would be purely in the best interest of everyday people, instead of just wanting to achieve some greater thing, some machine that they're building. But when it comes to the stars and when it comes to numbers, I always ask the same thing from people. I'm interested to see patterns. Sometimes the patterns win out. When I have my buddy Ryan Gable on the show to talk about synchronicity, he'll even disclaim along the way that, just because there is synchronicity with numbers that he sees with, certain events and people, and, if a king or a queen is involved in some story, and that king or a queen has a certain number, the number 22 or 27 keeps popping up for them along the way in their lives, dates, whatever. Even he will say that it is not. It doesn't mean anything. Synchronicity doesn't exactly mean that there was some kind of greater planning, or that it lends itself to some other bigger cosmic revelation. But at the same time, it's not even just about, hey, this name, this date, it's 44 and 55 and 222 and all that shit. And the same thing goes with the stars. I always ask, okay, listen, if you're planning a war, if you're planning to assassinate somebody, or you're planning to crash a stock market or whatever the hell else like that, what does waiting for Jupiter to be in a certain position do to charge a situation or to give you more luck for success?
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent observation. I think that's bang on, because we have to be thinking in terms, or again, I talk about myself. I think in terms that this world is bigger than just the material world, right? I believe in God. I believe in the devil. I believe in good. I believe in evil. And I am conscious that the narratives that are put before me are orchestrated. And I can see they're orchestrated because I'm able to, as I say, decode. And when I'm decoding and I'm looking at a story and I'm seeing that these numbers keep coming up, and I'm saying, okay, why are these numbers all coming up? Why is that? That's not, like, I can see it happening a coincidence. That's two things, you know, two people meet at the store at the same time. Okay, it's a coincidence, great. But when you're talking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 elements all the same, then I'm like, okay, that looks as though that's been put together. And then I have to ask myself, is that for a bigger purpose? And because I do believe in evil and I do believe in the devil, I do look at that and say, there's definitely an element of spiritual influence, negative spiritual influence that is occurring in here. And so I don't know anything about, let's say, necromancy or witchcraft, but numbers and elements are prevalent in spells and spell casting. And so when I come across a story that's showing me the same numbers over and over and over and over again, and it may be connected to a story that's in the news or an event, or I'm looking at that thinking, okay, that's put before us because it's involving something bigger than just us. It's involving something nebulous.
Well, that's what we're going to have to figure out. I don't know. I mean, I understand repetition and trying to get people off their.
It's like that's how the brainwashing occurs. You remain stuck in the programming because you can't see it. But once you start to see, oh, this is happening again and again, and this is coming up again and again and again, it's like, okay, I can step away from that now. I don't have.
But
to.
the number, and the numeric aspect of it is something that just doesn't. Nobody's ever been able to make it make sense to me. I understand wanting to rule over a certain group of people. I understand wanting to take over a company. I understand wanting to corner the market of oil or some other resource. I understand having greater eugenic I don't know, goals, like how you want to be able to ethnically cleanse a land and you want to recreate it yourself, and there's just something you're working toward. But to fuse your efforts with a number makes absolutely no sense. And here I want to play something for you. Listen to this.
All right.
This is from, what the hell's his name? And he's a rabbi. But by the way he speaks about Jesus, I have to imagine he's a messianic rabbi. He's a messianic Jew.
Yeah, maybe.
Take a listen to this. This rabbi discovered the secret behind Jesus and bread in the Bible, and hopefully this will get us a little bit more in line with what Zach maybe can make sense for us. Listen to this.
Jesus connects.
Like, see, it's things like that I'll sit there and go,
Yeah.
But, what does that mean? Does that mean that there is just beyond this frequency of light where I see you, you see me, there's this room over here? Is there just some other geometric kind of a structure to everything beyond the skin suits and beyond the mountains and the trees? Is there just some other I don't know.
It makes me think of one of the Avengers movie. I think it was one of the, I don't know, maybe Thor, and they talk about the ether. And the ether is this element within the air. And I don't think it's quite like this cloud that was the ether, but there is definitely a connectability between persons and between everything in the universe. If you think of the Fibonacci symbol,
Yeah.
right, in nature,
The
and
golden
that
ratio.
happens, and that happens naturally, and all the plants, they have the same growth pattern, this Fibonacci pattern, and you'll see that through many different elements naturally in the world. So this world was created. Math is like the term that we apply to the creation, and it's so that our bodies, our systems can understand it. We have to have some sort of tangible way of bridging that gap of understanding our universe, and so we apply words. But even Zach will talk about how in the Book of Formation, God said He created the world with letters, numbers, and words, and that rabbi is a perfect example. And you were saying how it doesn't seem to make sense to you, and why would that be? And I totally get that, because it was never in my upbringing either. I had no idea what gematria is at all. But let me tell you, a few years ago, we were here with Zach and a number of us from the, if Zach's, let's say his YouTube channel. We were here in New York, and a number of us went up to Yale University, just up the road there in Connecticut. And when Zach started talking to those students about gematria and all the connections that I made, and Yale equals 43, our president came from 43. He was a 43rd president, George Bush. His brother was a 43rd governor in Florida. His father was a 30. The students totally latched on to what Zach was talking to them about. And they were like, wow, nobody ever talks about this outside of our classes.
Well,
Okay, so you're right. It's not an education that we got. But think of everybody growing up, a child who was in that culture.
It's more so of the magical, the conjuring. I mean,
let me just give me an example here. He was just talking about Jesus and the bread of life. So Jesus, cross, gospel, miracle. Oh, maybe not miracle. Jesus, cross, gospel, and a number of others. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on them, but they all equal 74. And how would they all have the same numerical value? Just as random words.
I don't know.
Okay, so this is where we have to go back, and we think, well, how did we get our language? And how did our language get standardized? And when did that happen?
Well, mathematics, of course, there are people out there who like to say that one culture or another, it's part of some of the more brain dead things that go on the internet a lot about who invented what, but mathematics was one of those things that was discovered.
Yeah.
That's just something that predates everything. It's a universal language in that respect. And of course, like you said, you see patterns in the way things divide and way things, even down to, genetics, how things pair up, how things, structure is formed, and it's all very mathematically grounded. So really, it's not so much about saying, well, hey, there is a mathematical way to understanding how things around us are even real, how we perceive them, and maybe, just it might in some way index the way we are in a way that maybe we haven't had that education. What I'm thinking, though, more so is in plotting a path forward, how are numbers, why are numbers, is that just something that happens if a person wants to do something, they want to take over a country, they want to invade a country, or they want to start a social club, when somebody says, oh, well, Mercury's in retrograde, so no new beginnings, communication failures, don't incorporate that business right now. Wait until next week when Mercury's not in retrograde anymore, because that's going to screw up the DNA of your new venture. And it falls into that same category of what the hell are you talking about? Make this make sense. Is it just that as we walk through life, as we place one foot in front of the other, in an unseen way, are we just leaving not footprints, but just tracks of numbers behind us in some way, but how it stacks up, I don't know.
I think it's important to think, okay, there is our organic side, and a number of us, we will notice certain patterns in our own lives, just like we have certain habits when we repeat our habits, and we'll maybe notice numbers that seem to repeat. But you and I aren't running the world,
Right.
right? We're like the plebeian taxpayers, right? We're not anywhere near. But for those who actually are running the world, and I'm going to let Zach get into that because I know he's going to be getting on in a few minutes.
Yeah. He's actually he's going to be here in a second or two.
Yeah, exactly. This is a very, very in-depth and basic, like, reality. They operate by this code. They operate. They organize everything. And one example, I'll go back to the United Nations. They talk about the one world government. We talk about a new world order. We've got the United Nations that was created in 1948 in order for Israel to have its own country. And now we find ourselves looking towards a digital footprint, a realization for every country, for every person in every country is what their aim is. So they can bring everybody together. That's really singularity.
I would imagine that is, especially when you talk about numbers that are now, who made the etymology of words. That's something that we talk about all the time.
Yeah. So we think about our language being standardized.
Let's bring Zachary in. We've got Zachary,
Hey,
Zachary K. Hubbard, host of Numbers Games and friend of our good friend Ann over here. It's the first time Zach's been on the show. It's good to meet you, sir. How the hell you doing?
Just so you know, I got my co-host with me.
Hello, co-host.
I was hoping my babysitter could go extra hours, but we'll have to do the interview while I got my daughter as well. So
it's okay. I've had to do that. Anytime I do my show from home, my daughter usually stops in to say hello to people. So I actually love it. People in this audience are going to love it too. So welcome to the show, man. I've got Ann over here, and we're connecting some things. We're talking about Titanic. We're talking about the Federal Reserve, and we're talking about our plight as tax cattle on tax day over here. But to take it back to just the beginning for anybody who's listening and it's trying to put together just what this all means, Gematria, and the application of numbers to figure out what's going on, whether people, there's a witting or unwitting reason for anything to add up in a certain way. Give us the basis of why this is so important to understand and why it's in everything.
sure, you gotta go back in time. You have to go back to the time of the ancient mystery religions. A lot of people think these are things of the forgotten past, but if you study them, it's quite clear they are alive and well and literally practice every single day and at the highest levels. Um, Mostly Kabbalah is the one you really have to understand. Within Kabbalah, there is the practice of coding numbers into words, which is Gematria. And if you look into Kabbalah, there's what's considered the good half, the tree of life, and then there's also what's considered the dark half. It's a complicated word to pronounce. I always say klipoth, but it's the evil tree. If you've watched Stranger Things, they enter that upside down world through the tree, and I don't want to get into all that, but no doubt it is a reference to this evil side of Kabbalah. And within the evil side, it's about using the knowledge of Kabbalah for the sources of, or I should say, for sorcery and spellcasting, and essentially to have influence over others. And another thing that would tie in with this are the Hermetic principles, the 7 Hermetic principles. For anybody who's not familiar with those, I would encourage everyone to read about them. It's a very quick read, the 7 Hermetic principles. For the sake of time, one of them is the rule of vibration, that everything carries a vibration. Every single thing in this world, every shape, every sound, every letter, every number, everything. And those vibrations have a real impact on us. And another Hermetic principle is that you're either the person having the impact or you're the one being impacted. And when you think about, for example, the nightly news, which is syndicated on all these networks, and pretty much, a world of billions of people are essentially experiencing the same information at once, it's obvious that we, the people, are the ones being impacted by the people who control the networks. And again, you start to study this practice of Gematria, you start to see that they really are contriving the headlines and history as we know it by this code of letters and numbers and dates. And from understanding it, you can start to get ahead of where things are going and see through the ritualism and who might win. For example, I heard you guys talking about elections being rigged and corrupt. Absolutely. Seeing through the rigged selections, as I call them, because they aren't elections, uh, rigged sports games. I see you got a Yankee cap on. We could tell you all about it. I'd love to tell you about what they did there. I don't know if you know this, but I don't know if you want to start there with your Yankees. But
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Well, the last three
it's not like it's not like it can get any worse at this point. So go ahead.
the last three times the president was shot. Are you aware that the Yankees and Dodgers faced off in the World Series, and the Dodgers won all those World Series?
Oh, incredible.
Well, here's what makes it more incredible. Just this practice of coding numbers into words. All of these words equate to 109. Shooting, Los Angeles, and Yankees. They all equate to 109. And the other year when the Dodgers defeated the Yankees, they picked up their 109th win of the season in doing so. And do you want to guess how many days it was from the supposed Trump shooting ear wound?
109 days.
Boom. There you go.
See, okay,
And-
wait. So, see, this is okay. Let's just sink our talons into that one thing and expand on it, because from there you could say, okay, well, I'm trying to weigh how on earth anything like that to that degree can be micromanaged into being, and not in some way just be, this is how the chips are falling, and that's how the cookie is crumbling. It's not something that's put into place. Like, I mean, I don't know. Are you saying that the 109 wins that the Dodgers had that year was planned? That the matchup was planned ahead of time? That there was that's where people will start saying, no, we have to get down to that. You have to explain on that level.
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely planned. I mean, you watch these ball games. What's the phrase you hear almost every night when you watch the game?
Play ball.
Well, you hear that one. What do the announcers often say? I mean, they say it practically every game. They couldn't have
Predicted this?
scripted it any better. They couldn't have scripted it any better. I mean, it's just such a tired, repetitive phrase. And I mean, they literally say it almost every single game. And yeah, it is one big script. And a lot of these guys in the league, they had fathers in the league. I'm up here in Seattle the other year. You got Vlad Guerrero Jr. becoming the first ever father-son duo to win the home run derby in Seattle, where the last father-son duo played the Griffies. That year, just for example, they had. I was out there in front of the stadium educating fans about how they rigged the games, and they even had to put on the banner for the All-Star game that year that Seattle's on the 47th parallel, and that game was played July 11th. The AL lost that year, staying on 47 wins in the All-Star game, and the NL broke an 11-year drought on the 11th of July. It really is. A lot of this stuff is just that simple and in your face, night after night, if you just pay attention to what they're doing. And, Frank, if I'm not mistaken, you are a Catholic, correct?
I am, yes.
So am I.
Yeah, as they
And
say,
so-
all roads
so
lead
is
to
Ann.
Rome.
Yes.
Yeah, so is Ann. Thank you, Ann, also for connecting us.
You're welcome.
This you might have heard the last three times there was a new pope, the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl. Were you aware of that?
That one I did hear. Yes.
Okay, and what I was pointing out here, because I'm in Washington State, to the fans, they were all excited. I said a lot of fans weren't aware of that at the start of the playoffs. So we said, well, here's what's amazing. I said, if you look up the Seahawks all-time playoff record, this is before the playoffs began, I said they're 17-19 right now in the playoffs. And if they win their first two games, that'll put them in the Super Bowl. And they'll be 19-19 all time, exactly 19 weeks after Pope Leo's birthday. And out of all the cities in America, only one has a 19 value in Gematria, and it's Seattle. And of course, Seattle ended up 19-0 up in that Super Bowl on the Patriots. We told everybody 21 was going to be the monster number in that game because the Super Bowl, if the Seahawks advanced exactly 19 weeks after the Pope's birthday, that does mean that, they played exactly 21 weeks after the Pope's birthday in the Super Bowl. This was the 21st Super Bowl hosted by NBC. It was the 21st meeting of the Patriots and Seahawks. The last time they met was the one where Russell Wilson threw the pick at the goal line. And if you go back to that, that game was played on 2-1. It was the down 2nd-and-1. And if you look at the box score, Russell Wilson, that was his 21st pass intercepted by number 21. So something we like to do with the knowledge is take advantage of the rig. We had Drake May, for example, to get sacked 6 times because that put him at 21 sacks taken for the playoffs, which is exactly what happened. We had the Seahawks to have 2 interceptions in the game because that gave him 21 for the season. And we had number 21 for a sack on the game, which is also a big payout because he doesn't normally get sacks. But he had actually ended up with 2 sacks in the game. He was in on that one also that turned into an interception that put the Seahawks up 21 points in the game out of reach. And yeah, again, this stuff's going on every day. We could just sit here and talk for literally 5 straight weeks about rigged sports and all that we've accomplished before it happened. But yeah, the games are rigged, the election's rigged, the news and the sports are all synced up. I mean, they pay tribute to the Pope all day, every day. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I don't think that's what you brought me on here tonight, but I just wanted to connect with something familiar since you had that Yankees cap on.
Yeah.
So, my dad's also a big Yankees fan.
Well, I'm sorry to him as well. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. See, I love this stuff, but as you kept running off the 2-1-21 examples, I actually believed that it was possible to make all of this stuff gel less. Because I almost felt like if you had less examples, it would be more believable. Because I'm just trying to think about the micromanaging of, no, okay, listen, 21 needs to be the one that intercepts this, that everything goes, and for everything to go flawlessly.
Well, let me stop you real quick. Did you hear what Malcolm Butler said after he made the interception?
What did he say?
He said, we practiced that play all week. And what everyone should say is, well, why would they even practice that at all? Because the Seahawks hadn't thrown the ball a single time, not one time the entire season on the goal line. Not once. That was the only time they threw the ball the entire season on the 1-yard line. So why would they have practiced that play all week?
It's just an incredible amount of control. That's really what it comes down to. What the picture you painted is just an incredible amount of control and minutia. It's not even, I mean, obviously the stakes are high, but I mean, the minutia that he's describing here is.
I would just add 2 things. I think one is I mentioned spell casting, and the more numbers involved, the stronger the spell.
If anybody wonders what I'm doing, it's my daughter wanted to piggyback, right? So
nice.
You got to do it. Hey, Zach, Ann just brings something up right there, Zach, about, and before we brought you on, I was talking about etymology. Does this get down to even the more basic roots of the languages that we use, that every word is essentially assigned a number, that we were almost like that language itself was rigged to make sure that everybody is spell casting all day long?
Well, again, you look into Hebrew, the 22-letter alphabet of Hebrew. It's understood that every letter is a number. The ancient Greek alphabet, again, the biblical languages, Hebrew and Greek, it's understood that every letter is a number. Revelation 13:18, which talks about here is wisdom in calculating the number of the beast, the number of a man. That's relating to Greek isopsophy, which is the same thing as Gematria, just within the Greek language. So yeah, it's an old world practice of putting numbers into words and studying this within biblical terms. The first 2 letters of our alphabet are based on the Hebrew alphabet. So, yeah, you can see the obvious parallels. And I mean, if you look at Israel, what are their 2 official languages? Hebrew and English. Again, once upon a time, I was trying to figure out what it was about the numbers, the repetitive numbers that I saw in news and even in sports, in TV shows and movies. And I was looking for, what is there something greater about numbers that I don't know? And that's when I came across the things I'm sharing today. Again, just upon studying it, it becomes undeniable what's going on. Have you ever seen the movie American Treasure or National Treasure with Nicolas Cage?
Absolutely, yes.
Have you seen the sequel?
Yes.
You know how? Hold on, I got to check on my daughter. She's not. Usually, she's getting all my attention right now. there's a scene with the president and Nicolas Cage, and the president tells Nicolas Cage, be sure to look into the book and look into page 47. Do you remember this scene?
Yes.
Okay, 47. And 47 is not an arbitrary number. You know, the Freemasons, they study the 47th problem of Euclid. By the way, the first degree of Freemasonry is the entered apprentice. We have the apprentice is number 47. If you pay attention in Hollywood movies, there's no scene as obvious as that. But if you pay attention in Hollywood movies and TV shows when the president's there, oh, I see we got into something. Sorry, but okay. Have you seen this newer show that came out right after Trump took office called Paradise?
No. I don't. I haven't been up on it.
Okay, it released. It's a Hulu show. It's actually pretty interesting, but it's about a presidential assassination, and you know, you find out that the president of the United States, he's born into a very wealthy oil family, something like the Rockefeller family. He wants to quit the oil business, and he just wants to teach high school. He says, Dad, I just want to do something honest. And this guy's an oil tycoon. He says, you know, there's no way my son is ever going to teach a bunch of dumb kids in a high school classroom. We're putting you into politics. He said, would you rather be the Republican governor of Kentucky or the Democratic senator of Kentucky? Because you can have either one. Our name goes far in this state. And anyway, so that's how his road in politics starts. And it's also kind of a nod to how, you know, two wings of the same bird. There's really no difference in these political parties, and money runs the whole show. But anyway, then you see while they're having this conversation, they have to zoom out. And what's his high school jersey up on the wall? Of course, it's number 47. And in this Gematria thing, all of these words equal 47. President, White House, Ruby. Do we want this? President, White House, government, authority. Did I say Republican, Democrat? All of these words equate to 47. And for people who are new here, there's 4 base ciphers of the English language. They're all based on the alphabetic order. The most simple one is A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, up to Z, the 26th letter is 26. The next most simple cipher, just running the alphabetic order in reverse. Z is 1, back to A is 26, and then both orders with numerology applied. And, you know, you take a name like Trump, for example. If you run the alphabetic order forwards, just the most simple cipher, Trump equals 88. And he's had a lot of big 88 rituals over the years, including the Mar-a-Lago raid on 8/8. And if you apply numerology, instead of it equaling 88, Trump equals 25, like he returned to office in 2025. And by the way, we told people 4 years in advance why he'd be returning in 2025. If you run it in reverse, Trump equals 47, like he is number 47. And if you run it in reverse with numerology, Trump equals 29, like he's set to leave office at the start of 2029. And with regards to that 88, Trump is Jesuit educated. He went to Fordham. I call it the 88 University. It's a long history of 88s at Fordham. But when he was elected while Pope Francis was 88 years old. And Pope Francis ended up dying on the 312th day of Trump's age. Pope Francis died on the 312th day of Trump's age. Trump supposedly got 312 electoral college votes. And then who did we get for Pope? We got the first American Pope from Chicago, the 312 area code.
Okay, Zach. So who's doing? Okay, just so we can, because I'm drowning over here. Explain to me who's doing this. Who is doing the numbers, and who's saying, okay, here's the marching orders to every. I mean, again, a lot of coordination here. So how do you like, I don't know.
So again, you have to. If this is a system, you'd have to look into who gave us the calendar. Are you aware of who gave us the calendar?
We did.
The church.
The Jesuit priest Christopher Clavius in tribute to the Pope. By the way, in the most simple cipher, Pope equals 52, like we have a 52-week calendar for the Pope. So Christopher Clavius, the Jesuit priest, is responsible for the calendar. He gets the credit. If you look into who's responsible for standardizing the English alphabet with the 26 letters, it also goes to the Jesuits. And both things were done at the same moment in history, the end of the 16th century, the century the Jesuits were created. And what you start to see is just following daily events, you just see how coordinated everything is. To make a point about the death of Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope, So his birth name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, equates to 201, just like Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, just like the Jesuit order equates to 201. And he was named after St. Francis of Assisi. He died 201 days from the death anniversary of St. Francis of Assisi. He also died on Rome's birthday, April 21st. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, as we just said, equals 201 if you take the alphabetic order. If you apply numerology to each letter, Jorge Mario Bergoglio equates to 111. He died April 21st, the 111th day of the year.
It just doesn't seem like this is something you can plan for. It just seems like, holy shit, it happened again. You know, like it seems like it's almost like, you know, tracking the behavior of a river rapids or the tides or something like that. That's where I think, especially people like me, are probably having the hardest amount of time trying to figure out what is human will, human machinations, and what is also just maybe revealing the way the inner workings of the clock of the universe actually, you know, turn and rotate in some kind of set pattern that we are beholden to but can't really perceive.
So again, I'll answer your question, but I just want to finish. If you run if his name is in reverse, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, it equals 312. Again, he died shortly after Trump took office after supposedly getting 312 electoral college votes, which again is the Chicago area code. And the next thing you know, we have a pope from Chicago. And of course, Trump defeated Kamala, who had the DNC in Chicago. And if you go back to 1988, again, I said Trump equals 88. Oprah in Chicago interviewed him in 88 if he'd want to be president someday. You might not have realized it, but Oprah and Kamala, they had a fundraiser for Kamala in Oakland, Michigan, 47 days before the election of number 47. And they did that in the 248 area code while the country was 248 years old. And President Donald Trump equates to 248. And that was part of how we called it years in advance. If you go back and look, when the election was called for Trump in 2016, Bill and Hillary conceded while Trump was on 248 electoral college votes. So they conceded 248. Trump returns to office while the United States of America is 248 years old. Again, this stuff, to me, it seems quite evident that it's being coordinated. This is really actually just simple math and addition and lining up dates and simple planning of time. Having Trump be the split term president like Grover Cleveland. Remember where Trump's convention was in 2016? It was in Cleveland. And in Gematria, Cleveland equals 78. Trump returns at age 78. And the thing is, it had been 132 years since Grover Cleveland began his split term. Split term equals 132, just like United States of America, just like there being 132 rooms in the White House. For the record, Catholic Church is 132, so is Roman Catholic. The White House is named after a Catholic architect. Again, I don't think this is the universe just playing out. I just think this is a very simple elementary code that's really a big FU to the American people. And it does show, just like Jefferson and Adams warned about. Jefferson and Adams warned that the Jesuits, should they come out suppression, they could subvert the nation. A lot of Americans don't even realize that this country was pretty much formed in opposition to the Catholic Church, which was the governing force over Europe at the time. And yeah, I mean, there's a million things we could point to. Sorry, I know that you did say you wanted to talk about the Titanic and Lincoln and the Federal Reserve and the IRS, all that. I'd be happy to transition to that because, again, I can just show you the recurring patterns and how all of these things, no doubt, are
let's
connected.
let's at least get into that, since it is we are here on tax day and we read through a bit of the history that we had compiled into a native blog that we had over here on Quite Frankly. So I'd love to know a little bit more of the numerical backup for some of the more well-known theories about the Titanic and what that sinking actually did to serve as a I don't know, is a major piece in a timeline kerfuffle, as some would say on some parts of the internet. So I mean, just jump into that, I guess, so that we at least have the theme intact.
Yeah. So just For people who don't realize, income tax was first implemented to raise money for the American Civil War in 1861 by Lincoln, who would eventually be assassinated at age 56. Kind of like another guy with a short mustache whose birthday is in a few days, whose body was never recovered, and a war was also blamed on him. But 56, 56. And this is another big pattern. You know, this nation was founded with 56 signers on the Declaration of Independence. But after the war, the income tax went away, and it was re-implemented at the beginning of 1913 on February 25th, the 56th day of the year, while Woodrow Wilson, the president, was 56 years old. And then at the very end of that year, at the tail end of Woodrow Wilson being 56, they implemented the Federal Reserve. And just to make a long story short, you know, again, all roads lead to Rome. The formal title of the Jesuits is Society of Jesus, which equals 56, as does Washington, D.C. Ruby, I know. I'm sorry. I'll be done in a little bit, okay? Do you want a treat? Hold on. Somebody needs a little treat real quick. But if you guys don't know, George Washington, who was quite favorable of the Catholic Church, unlike a lot of the other founders who gets to go down in the history book as the first recognized president, he was 56 when Georgetown was established in January of 1789, and then he turned 57 shortly after, right before being inaugurated. And just for the record, Rome equals 57 like Georgetown. For people who don't know the history of DC, it was land gifted by a wealthy Catholic named Francis Pope, not to be confused with Pope Francis, and they used to call DC Rome on the Potomac, thus all the Roman architecture there today and the Roman fasces on the house wall of the House of Representatives. But this 56 thing, the Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, this number just so recurring throughout history. We recently just took out Maduro and replaced him with a 56-year-old, and then 56 days later on the nose, we took out Khomeini and replaced him with his 56-year-old son, whose name also equals 56 in Gematria, at least in the English language, wouldn't be in his native Persian tongue. But you can see that it's the same organization putting their signature, their Kabbalistic signature on everything about this nation from the beginning up to the present. And if for people who don't know about the Jesuits, they work through infiltration, you know. So if anyone's saying, well, wait a minute, the beginning of the country's founded with 56 and I thought it was to oppose this, it's because they're just there manipulating all the way, and over time they've moved us. It's become more and more clear who runs this nation. But okay, you guys talked about Futility, the Wreck of the Titan, how that book was written 14 years before the Titanic sank.
Yes.
And again, it's about the largest ship ever built that hits an iceberg on its first sail traveling from Europe to America. And obviously the parallels are there. And I learned about that before I even knew about this gematria thing. That was one of the things that blew my mind and said, okay, I need to learn more about this world. It was probably about 2010-ish that I learned about that. And I said, what in the world? But okay, if you measure from the day that the Titanic sank to the establishment of the Federal Reserve, it's 617 days, which is the 113th prime number, and Titanic equals 113. And 113 is an interesting number in the Talmud. I'd encourage everybody to look up what Bava Kama 113a is about. If for people who know the history of the Jesuits, it's a Catholic-Jewish alliance because Martin Luther targeted both Catholicism and Judaism with the Protestant Reformation. He said there couldn't be decent society with these religions in existence. So it was a total opposition to the Catholics and the Jews, which brought about this Jesuit, again, Jewish Catholic alliance, and probably part of how the Jesuits implemented this Kabbalistic knowledge within the calendar and language when they rolled out this system at the end of the 16th century, which I'd say is exactly what they did. And for anyone who doubts that, all you have to do is look at what they're doing every single day. I mean, it's clearly abundant that everything's synced with the Pope and the Superior General literally every single day. So again, that's the frustrating thing about this is people just have so much time with this subject and how could this be? But it really is elementary when you study it. It's a really simple system they've implemented. It's kind of brilliant how they've encoded the language, but now that it's here, it's just elementary math. Anyway, this number of 113 has a lot to do with deception in the Talmud and about who can lie to who. And words like mainstream and dishonest and even just phrases like not true. There's so many things that have to do with dishonesty that equal 113. And the Federal Reserve is horribly dishonest. I mean, it's even misnamed. There's nothing federal about it. There's no reserves. I know you talk about G. Edward Griffin. He points out all these things. The Federal Reserve is one of the most dishonest things in name. So anyhow, this perfect alignment from the sinking to the establishment of the Federal Reserve. And as you said, and you know, it's funny, you search on Google, they'll say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory that all those men who died were opposed to the Federal Reserve. But you actually do the research, you see that, yeah, they did not want this central bank because they understood that central banks aren't good for anybody's money except for the people who are controlling the bank. And okay. So, by the way, this year the Federal Reserve turns 113 years old, and you have this turmoil between these two Jesuit puppets on the world stage, Trump, who went to Fordham, and Jerome Powell, who went to Georgetown. I don't even know, just little things to you guys. The day that Trump nominated Kevin Warsh to be the next head of the Federal Reserve, Catherine O'Hara died that day, who's known for screaming out Kevin in Home Alone, and who's also in She's in Home Alone 2 with Trump, and here's how perfect it is. She died at 71. Federal Reserve equals 71. And that ritual happened. She died 71 days.
See,
She died 70.
Zach, see that's where you're going to lose people.
Let me finish the sentence. She
Catherine,
died 71 days after the anniversary of the release of Home Alone 2 that they're both in, where Kevin stays at Trump's hotel in the movie. And today, Trump comes out again like The Apprentice and said he's going to fire Jerome Powell if he doesn't resign next month. Today is the 71st day of Jerome Powell's age. This stuff is super redundant. So when I hear that this is going to lose people, again, I just think it's because they have small minds, tiny little minds, and they can't follow the obvious. And what they should do is look up.
Easy. All I'm saying is it's one thing to say, well, take a look at these patterns that keep coming up. But when you're saying before is that these are very tightly planned and very plotted out, that now I have to consider that the death of Catherine O'Hara had to be lumped in with this to what would be the perfect the purpose for that.
That's a good question.
Why would she need to be lumped into this for this Federal Reserve change to be consummated in some way?
Again, what I would encourage people to do is look up the lyrics to the song Murder by Numbers by The Police. Stuart Copeland in that band, his daddy was in the CIA, and people should look up the CIA statue called Kryptos, which is right outside their front doors, that pays tribute to this knowledge of letters and numbers. But again, in the song Murder by Numbers, which came out in 83, the word murder equals 83 for the record, it's about how killing is the sport of the elected, and it's as simple as ABC is 1, 2, 3. And it's something you do if you're amongst the world's elite. If you're amongst the world's most important people, it's something you do for fun and sport. Everybody should look up the lyrics to Murder by Numbers by The Police. While you're at it, you can look up the song Gematria, the Killing Name by Slipknot. For the record, the singer for Slipknot said he would only perform Gematria, the Killing Name, for Pope Francis. And they happened to perform that song for the first time ever. It's existed for 20 some years. They just happened to perform it for the first time ever, days before the Pope died. They performed it on the 52nd day of the year. Pope equals 52. Pope Francis equals 59. He would die 59 days after the performance of that song. And 59 is a big number with Francis. They synced up. But there's a lot to say. Benedict stepped down on the 59th day of the year for him. The 59th presidential election is where Joe Biden won. He was elected number 46, exactly 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. Catholic, the word Catholic equals 46. Like there's 46 books in the Catholic Old Testament. The first Catholic president, JFK, was shot at age 46. By the way, John F. Kennedy equals 59. So in the 59th election, synced with the Pope, you get the next Catholic, Biden, who has the same birthday as RFK, the brother of JFK. And I don't know if you caught it, but yesterday, the Dallas Cowboy, John Fitzgerald, like John Fitzgerald Kennedy, just happened to die on Lincoln's anniversary of getting shot. And where did he go to school? He went to Boston College, the Jesuit University. So that's what I mean. This stuff's going on every day. They said there was 2 mass shootings in Turkey at schools in back-to-back days in a nation that doesn't have school shootings. And they said yesterday 16 were shot on the anniversary of the 16th president getting shot. Again, you start to realize, the New World Order is really the Jesuit world order, and it's all number ritualism every single day.
So where do you see this all going? Like you said, once you are able to connect dot to dot, get the red yarn out, and you've got your situation room all set up, and this is just a way of being able to read in between the lines and see the world beyond print. You said that it's rather easy to know where things are going and what's going to happen, how an election is going to go, how a Super Bowl is going to go, whatever. So basically, you're up to date with most things. Where do you see the next 2 months going, as far as the war, as far as the midterms, everything?
Okay, so good question. So are you aware that they're upping the enlistment age to 42 on Hitler's birthday here on 420?
I saw that. Yes.
Just for the record, with the most simple cipher, war is 42. With numerology applied, World War is 42. And they're also, at the end of this year on December 18th, they're making it so that you are automatically enrolled in the selective service once you turn 18. Well, back when we were in high school, we had to enroll ourselves manually. I'm sure you remember that.
Yes.
For people to know, the selective service, I might have to wrap it up. My daughter's not used to me not giving her attention. But I'll tell you this real quick. I'm almost done, Ruby. December 18th, the day that they're doing this, is exactly 42 weeks after the war in Iran began. And by the way, oh my Ruby, I'm sorry, love bug. Come here, love. Come here. I got you. I got you. She's used to getting 100% attention.
Yeah, I get you. I understand.
Okay. The war began this year, you guys, on the 8th anniversary of the temple coin coming out, with Trump and King Cyrus and the third temple on the other side. It is being used to raise funds to build the third temple, which is what, certain people want to do. They want to get rid of Al-Aqsa Mosque and they want to build the third temple there. It was also, so that date, February 28th. They can be written 28/2 as the majority of the world writes it, 282. Benjamin Netanyahu equals 282. And when October 7th happened, it happened 282 days after Netanyahu came back into power. And when did Netanyahu come back into power? He came back December 29th, which is Albert Pike's birthday. And Albert Pike, he has that infamous letter that some people say may not be real, but it does have a publishing date about 3 world wars to come. The publishing date is August 15th, 1871. That's the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th, born in Paris, France on that day in 1534. So I pointed this stuff out the day Netanyahu came back on my channel, and I said, look for a war to start in Israel about the time Yale turns 322 years old. And the war did start October 7th, 2 days before Yale turned 322. Of course, that's the number of skull and bones modeled after the Templars, the Crusaders, the powerful secret society that both Bushes were in. So anyway, again, it seems that that they're taking us to the obvious place. How long is it going to take to get there? They do tend to drag things out, so that's hard to say. But the fact that they're doing this automatic enrollment, if you missed it, the Army, the head of the Army, Trump had him resign on 4/2, and his replacement became the 42nd person to have that position in the head of the Army in its history. By the way, Pete Hegseth, the head of the Pentagon, with his Templar and Crusader tattoos, what day was he nominated? He was picked November 12th, 2024, which was the Superior General's birthday, the leader of the Jesuits, Arturo Sosa. A year to the day later, what happened a year to the day later? The longest government shutdown in history ended on the Superior General's 77th birthday. I heard Ann teaching you about Washington, D.C. on the 77th meridian. Don't forget the United States in Gematria equals 77. And the Jesuits have a lot to do with why the capital is where it is today. It wasn't always there. Yeah, I mean, they're taking us to where we don't want to be. Is it going to happen in the next 2 months? It's possible. I keep looking at this date, June 3rd, which is going to be the 10th anniversary of the death of Muhammad Ali. They say the Prophet Muhammad died at age 63. Muhammad Ali dies on 6'3". There's a lot to say. It has to do with the Temple Israel shooting outside of Detroit. But yeah, I mean, we're being taken to where we probably always thought we were going. I mean, I think we're around the same age, Frank. Ever since 9/11, they've held Iran over our head as the axis of evil, and
Yeah.
Talk of could World War ignite? I mean, by the way, Iran equals 42 as well. So will it be in 2 months, or will it be sometime after the selective service thing becomes automatic and nobody can escape draft duty? I mean, that remains to be seen, but that's where we're being taken to.
Well, we're gonna have to see then. Like you said, it could be on a timeline of soon or later, and it always seems that we're always marching toward this. I mean, Iran was one of the last countries that was left off the list. So you have to imagine that 25 years, kind of like the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. I guess we're doing that if you're thinking new world order point of view. But I appreciate. I know that you are you're very tied up over there, and you've been great juggling your wonderful daughter and all this other stuff, and you're just completely dousing us in information over here. I don't know how the hell I can go and process it to come up with some more coherent questions. But for now, I just wanted to see how a guy like Zachary K. Hubbard sees the world in numbers. And I'm glad that you were able to come on for a little bit. And all the best to you. I've linked your channel in the description of the episode, so hopefully a few people swing by to say hi sometime soon.
Just to tell you one thing about how planned out things are, everyone should look into what day they began planning the World Trade Centers. You'll see that Governor Dewey called for the first World Trade Center Construction Commission July 6th, 1946. Do you know who was born that day?
Who?
George W. Bush.
Well.
Yeah, and again, you guys, I told you Iran equals 42. If you use numerology, it equals 24. Right now, it's 24 years and change since 9/11, and they've held Iran over our heads since then. You go back and you look at the Wesley Clark thing when he came out with how he found that memo on his desk about all the countries we'd be going into after 9/11. The last one on the list was Iran, and here we are. Again, you learn this knowledge, you'll see just how sick and twisted it is and who's responsible. Just to tell you about the last two elections, because Ann did bring up how I don't know anybody else that was saying Biden was going to win when I was, and everyone thought I was wrong, but I said, no, they're going to put him in because go back and look at the death of his son, Beau Biden. Beau Biden died at 46, 201 days before the Pope's birthday. And I was telling you about how the Pope's name equals 201, like the Jesuit order, and he was the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. If you look, the Jesuits were created 201 months after Martin Luther penned the 95 Theses, and Catherine the Great preserved the order with 201 Jesuit priests when they were suppressed, and on and on and on. But yeah, Beau Biden died exactly 201 days before the Pope's birthday. Again, Biden ends up getting elected number 46, exactly 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday. And look into the Jesuit priest, the former head of Georgetown, who did the funeral for Beau Biden at 46 and the inauguration for Joe Biden as number 46. Leo Jeremiah O'Donovan. His name equals 201. And it's similar to Trump. Trump's ex-wife, Ivana, when she fell down the stairs and died on July 14th, 2022, that was the same day that Trump said he'd run in the upcoming election. That was the 60th election. Donald Trump equals 60. And exactly 60 weeks into the first ever Jesuit Ignatian year, he says he'll run, and his ex-wife dies. Then he buries her on July 20th, the 201st day of the year. And inauguration day, January 20th, which it always wasn't, but it was moved to that, in the 30s. That is the 201st day of the nation's age when you measure from July 4th. It can also be written 20/1 like 201. And if you go to the U.S. government website, they have a title for that day. It's Inauguration of the President of the United States, which equates to 201. And again, you go through this history, that's another very common recurring number in major events like the two towers, the Twin Towers becoming zero before they became one World Trade Center, 201. Look into Georgetown's motto, it's both into one. Event 201 was the pandemic simulation the day the military world games began in Wuhan, China, spearheaded by Klaus Schwab, Jesuit educated, who retired the same day the Pope died. And, just really on and on and on. But anyway, Frank, appreciate you having me on. I can be a bit combative. So sorry for the personality. But people really do need to learn about this. You will see through what is going on a daily basis. And while it might seem overwhelming at first, once you learn it, it's good to know it because you'll stop getting manipulated. These people are manipulating our energy with their fake news. that are rigged sports games that are meant to drive the fans insane, and everything else. I mean, these polarizing characters like Donald Trump. Uh, People can watch my video from 2016. What I said, I told people before Super Tuesday why they're going to put Trump in, because he was the great polarizer. And as they say, united we stand, divided we fall. There's people who want us divided and falling because it's more for them and less for us, as we're all experiencing right now.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for juggling a lot of things over here to come and join us for a little while tonight, my man. And have yourself a good time. Have yourself a good week, and perhaps we'll talk again in the future.
All right. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Zach.
Take care.
Okay.
So, there you go. Well, Ann.
It's a lot, eh? It's a lot to take in.
Again, there's a lot of
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of data.
It's a lot of data to take in. I will ask you to do this. I mean, you've been to sports games before.
Yes.
And
Listen,
so-
I'm sorry, but you're not going to be able to.
Oh, no, I just going to say, if you turn the ticket around, it says this has been a presentation of the NFL or whatever. NBA.
Listen, I don't think you understand.
I'm just. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not. I'm just.
I had somebody on the show. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, right before the Super Bowl. I forget which one it was. It might have been with the Bengals and anybody. But the day before the Super Bowl, or no, the Friday before the Super Bowl, I had on a guy who had written a book about how everything was rigged.
Okay.
And you know, I love listening, but hearing about this shit. And as far as being able to, okay, that game was rigged. Somebody's on the take over here. Somebody took a dive over there.
Right.
But when you're talking about 162 game season,
Right.
6 months,
I know. I get you. It seems a lot. I know.
It's impossible.
Well, you know they do. I was one, and let me just preface this with something.
Let me also just preface that does not mean that a short series at the end of that 162 game season can't be rigged. It has been in the past. It's been exposed.
I can understand that, and that it's much more palatable to think, well, like this part of the game was rigged. Like a bad call, or this game was not legitimate. It's I understand that, and I don't mean to throw anything out there or whatever. But let me tell you, I live in Canada, right? So I teach women about their fertility. So I'm at this medical conference at a hotel in Ottawa, and there was another group at that hotel, and the group was a Canadian football professional team, okay, CFL team, okay. They were at this, and I got to speak with some of the players, and I got to speak with the general manager, who happened to also be the head coach. And I brought up the fact that, we've been able to look at the games through the lens of Gematria and be able to call them before they actually happen. And literally, Frank, like his face just went white. This is a darker complected man. He went like he realized he was confronted with a reality that he didn't think anybody was going to bring up to him. I mean, it ended calmly, it's just a little conversation, but it's just another realization that, okay, there are things going on behind the scene that we don't know. And when we watch NFL, we have all of those WWE commercials going on, and you start recognizing that there's probably more between those two sports than we.
Well, yeah. That's insane. WWE, you see, I mean, I'm always trying to find the planned aspect of a situation, of an election, of whatever the hell it is, and separate it from synchronicity.
Yeah.
And separate it from, I mean, you can find numbers everywhere.
You can. And so you got to know what you're,
I know, but to all put it on the same level and to say, hey, Trump's ex-wife died, 100. So what do you say? Did So did the Trumps plan for his
Okay,
ex-wife
so
to die 120 days?
I don't.
I mean-
I don't have any inside information. I wouldn't be able to plan that, but I can say that we have seen, especially in the sports field, we've seen enough links, enough connections between games and situations that are going on now and the passing of past players or individuals who have been connected with those teams in the past that are too often to be coincidence. It's too strong. It really is undeniable. So he mentioned, I think Catherine O'Hara. He mentioned her passing at 71.
Yep.
And you say, "Oh, is that like? How could that be connected?" Okay, you're absolutely right. Sounds ridiculous, and as another human being,
it's not. Yeah.
But
More so,
think,
what's the significance?
Okay, so here's where you've really got to take a step back and look at the whole Kabbalistic code and that whole practice that Zach was talking about, the negative field, the negative aspect, the clip-off aspect. Frank, when our Christian religion comes from a Judeo-Christian, right? So the Abrahamic religion.
Well, our religion started where Judaism stopped.
Well, but they still have, and you think of Abraham, and Abraham at one point, he goes up on the hill and he was going to sacrifice Isaac. Remember that story? Mm-hmm. He was going to and then the angel took Abraham's hand and said, "No, don't harm the child. God sees that you love him more. Go and get the ram that's stuck in the bushes." So Abraham goes and he builds the altar. Well, the altar was built and he sacrifices the ram instead of his son Isaac. That's very significant because back in that day, it was not uncommon to experience or to have cultures that practice human sacrifice. Okay? That was like a turning point for the chosen people. At that point, when Abraham was stopped from sacrificing his son, that's where God had said, "This is not going to happen with this chosen people anymore." All the other cultures were, let's say, guilty of it. They were doing that. And you think, why did they do that? Now you have to think back to what I was saying earlier about the spiritual realm. And we know as Christians, okay, we think about the sacrifice that Christ made for us on the cross. Okay? Well, there's power in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's real power in that. And so that power is also used in negative. So when somebody else loses, somebody else gains. So when Zach was talking about Catherine O'Hara happened to lose her life at the same time when this other event was going on, all connected around the number 71, it's not just a question of connecting a lot of numbers and that I see all these numbers. No, we actually see sacrifices that are connected to that. So that's where it really gets quite diabolical. There are, with each Super Bowl that Zach has been predicting and talking about year after year after year, countless deaths happen connected to those games. And I'm not just going to say it's to the Super Bowl. It's connected throughout the seasons. So anyway, I don't want to get really negative or anything, but there is real power that's above what we experience.
That's a central theme of this show.
Yeah.
I'm not
Exactly.
denying that at all. I don't think it's very dark or anything. You're just talking about a spiritual balance there that we always contend with. This was really about trying to find ways to categorize how the universe is, how the universe operates, and what can be used to manifest reality through will, what reflects back just events that are going on in the world just by maybe just some kind of a numeric mirror to the face of what's going on, where again it's a synchronicity. It shows that there are unseen cogs in the clockwork that aren't necessarily part of a will, and don't necessarily have any greater significance beyond the fact that it is a synchronicity. And I'm saying I know that the world is all about hierarchy and plots and conspiracy of people whose interests converge, whether they have spiritual interests that converge, economic, geopolitical, whatever the hell it is. I was just trying to figure out where there is any kind of distinction or categorization that can be put in place that makes a little bit more of of sense of why somebody would wait until the moon is full to be able to do something, or why they would wait until Jupiter conjuncts with some other planet or star to be able to do so, or to avoid doing. That's where it is. And well, we got a lot of data, not a lot of clarity for me, but it's still interesting and worthy digging into for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's just a little bit at a time. You just learn a little bit more, and that's what life is about. You learn a little bit more every day. Every day you're a little bit brighter than the day before. That's
hey, like I said,
that's the
math was discovered.
Yeah,
it is a universal language. It is obviously part of the overall programming of God's creation.
Yeah.
So, sure. Just like whatever the hell's going on above, in the sky. There's no doubt in my mind, because we've read about it for many years now, that there are reasons why you pay attention to these things, to be able to plot a path forward and to be able to put favor in your to I don't know, win yourself some favor. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to tap into a little bit more. What does why can't Trump just go and make himself a new nomination at the Federal Reserve? Why does Catherine O'Hara have to die first?
Yeah,
that's where I'm trying to find the balance a little bit more.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock.
Good.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. You got a book that people can go and download for free right now.
That's right. My fertility business book is free again today and tomorrow. So anybody who would like to go on to your Amazon app and download the Kindle version, you're welcome to do that. If you like it, please leave a review, and maybe share it with people who you think it could benefit.
Here it is. So I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to put it into the chat rooms. This is Anne's book until midnight tonight Eastern time, or
I think it's actually Pacific time.
Oh wow! Until 3 a.m. Eastern time, you're able to download this for free on Kindle.
And it's today and tomorrow, so it's free tomorrow as well.
Okay, so let me put this in the chat rooms right now. Anne's book. It is free, ladies and gents. Don't. Free is for me. That's what they all say. Free is for me. Okay. I put that in the chat rooms. Please go check it out. And we are going to.
And there's two more there on your desk.
Oh yes. See this? I'm going to give these away probably next week.
Okay.
I'll put them together. We actually have the paperback of her fertility business book that you just got for free. The link is in the chat. Mm-hmm. And Anne,
that's a historical Christian Western romance. So it's
1910.
1910, and it's a light Christian, clean and wholesome romance set in the West, like with horses. Obviously the setting is Billings, Montana.
So, oh yeah, well, the billing cycle, that's fantastic. Good for you. That is one of all, two things real quick. So obviously this is very hallmarky right here. Yeah. You can you could probably make a bet.
Could read it. Yeah.
It's going to make you feel, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be a stable story.
Yeah.
But why do you prefer the pen name for your fiction?
Because
Bethany Jones is her pen name.
Yes, that's right. I have a different pen name for my Christian fiction series. Yep. I just want to make that distinction because the fertility is really where my focus is, and that's where I promote myself and my name, my brand, and I really want to get that out there. In fact, I started writing the Christian fiction books to support the work that I do with fertility. That's the whole thing around it. But I give it a different pen name so that it has its own niche, its own branding.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have it over here. Hey, maybe I can actually. It's a short book. Maybe I can read it before I
within an hour. You can read it. If you're only giving it away next week, you've got a whole week.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Okay, so hey, we're gonna slip over to the flip side for a couple of minutes because Ann has to catch a train very soon, and yeah, so come on over to pilled.net. I'm going to be putting the link in the chat room. Join us. And for the first time and the last time tonight, or the second time and the last time tonight, can you let us all your last name again?
Yeah, my name is Anne Catherine Bélanger.
Bélanger. See, I can say French words.
You said it very nicely, Frank.
When people tell me how to say it, Bélanger, and that's it. Anne Bélanger is here tonight, and. If this is the last time I have you in studio until 2027, I just want to say these last 2 nights that we got to hang out on air, they've been really awesome, and I've learned a lot.
Thanks. I'm really glad you could have me on. Thanks very much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody, your support and your prayers, and don't give up on the UN. I know it sounds sometimes scary, but there are a lot of good people who need our prayers and our help.
Well, as long as good people like you keep showing up, then all hope won't be lost.
Yeah.
But I got to say, I'm not a fan of the UN. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of you, and I'm a fan of your presence over there. That makes me feel like, okay, I can accept a glass of water from somebody.
Exactly. You've got some good people on the inside.
That's it. All right, guys. We'll catch you on the flip side for a little bit. I just put the links in the chat room. We'll see you there.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
And everybody, I'm going to be reading your super chats on the flip side. I'm sorry I couldn't get around to it, but I'm going to be reading them there, and maybe I'll bring them up again tomorrow too, so that you don't feel all jilted and stuff. But I'm taking Ann to the train station too, so I couldn't stay on too much longer. Just reading super chats. But I'll be reading them in a moment, and then again tomorrow, perhaps. Okay, good night.
Will you shut